Hey, what's up, everybody? So excited to give you this conversation today. Today, I talked to Joe from TwoSapp. That's TWOSAPP.com. And TwoSapp is this really brilliant and super simple notes taking app with a bunch of features that are coming. But what I love about it is just the ease of use. This is pretty much a brand new company. He raised pre-seed with Tampa Bay Ventures to the tune of 400K. He's got 20,000 current users and 3 to 4K monthly recurring revenue. Enjoy this episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books your podcast interviews. So specifically, Kitcaster works with entrepreneurs with exits, C-suite executives, and funded startup founders, and works to book them on the world's top podcast. Now, what we know is that founders always need content, and podcast interviews is just a brilliant way and a very low friction way to get the content itch scratched. So check out kitcaster.com today and apply if it's relevant for you.
Live tonight, shining stars, computer light. AI, take the flight in the glow of neon bright.
Joe, how the heck are you?
Ryan, I am so good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to talk all about your company. I'm really excited about Twos, which is twosapp.com. But before we do that, let's just dive right into the, what did you call it? AI madness? Let's get right to it. And let's start with like what tools right now are you really excited about? What's really exciting to you right now in AI?
You know, I don't know if this makes me an AI prude, but I just love ChatGPT. I've been a big fan of ChatGPT, and I promise, you know, especially just to give myself a little bit more credibility with all the image generation stuff and Sora improvements and the models of that nature. I was using Grok the other day, just trying to understand, you know, its competitive advantage compared to what OpenAI has, and I didn't see anything. Like, I was actually relatively under enthused by Grok. So, you know, in terms of just general data scraping and, you know, learning more about being a startup founder, I really just love the LLM based stuff. Is there anything on your radar?
No, I love that. And maybe some use cases. Did you basically replace Google search with GPT?
100%, especially for my personal life. I've always liked saying that to me LLMs and AI is just Google with a little bit of confidence. You know, you're able to ask it a question and then it just gives you a straight answer as compared to like, oh, well, your answer could be in one of these 50, you know, websites. I like how, you know, LLMs are just like, no, here's exactly what you need to know about, you know, converting tablespoons to ounces.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, there's so many models now. I mean, and by so many, there's probably a dozen that are competitors. And it seems like, I mean, if tech is any example, it's kind of a winner takes all. There really is no second place. So GPT,
Exactly.
like they jumped right to the front of the line right from the get-go, and they're seeming to do a really good job of holding that, particularly as you have incumbents, you know, like DeepSeek and folks that are like, hey, we're going to give you 90% of what you get in GPT with like 1/10 of the compute. You know, and to your point, like Meta AI, no one's looking there. Grok AI, no one's looking there. So it kind of like, you know, at least with Meta is, you know, open sourcing it. So I wonder how GPT is going to like maintain supremacy if like you can get 90% of the way there with an open platform.
Especially with the $40 billion round that they just closed at a $300 billion valuation. Like, you know, in terms of scalability, I was reading an article this morning that emphasized despite I think they touted $5 billion in ARR, they're still deeply underwater in terms of profitability. So like, you know, the thing that I always have been so fascinated about with GPT particularly, is how it just kind of popped up on the scene out of nowhere and maintained that lead, you know, up until this point. They just kind of, you know, came out of nowhere and all of a sudden it just has become a integral tool for so many people. Yet from a profitability standpoint, we're not getting anywhere close. So it'll be interesting to see like kind of just how this keeps up for the next couple of years.
Yeah, the profitability will be really important to watch. I mean, I did hear how Sam Altman determined the valuation on his company. which is he wrote with magic marker on a bunch of balloons, blindfolded himself, and just started throwing darts, and the number that was left, that was their valuation.
Okay. I mean, from an ecosystem standpoint, I can see. So we actually use the ChatGPT API for
Yeah.
twos. And so when it comes to analyzing the things that people write down to provide smart suggestions, we do use the Open AI API. And I actually think that you would love to know this. We have about 20,000 active users. Take a wild guess as to what our monthly API bill is.
North of 1,000.
It is under $10.
Wow, no kidding. And you said you have
So just for
20,000 users?
20,000 users. Now the good news is that since we are text based, it's a notes app in a large capacity. So the only like input and output that we have really is just using the LLM to categorize what people are writing down. So there isn't a whole lot of compute related to, the work that we're having it do. But for each one of these requests, which are thousands a day, the idea that it's, 0.00001 cents per request is pretty awesome so far. Now,
Yeah.
going back to what we were just talking about, profitability and an ecosystem, wouldn't it be a shame if one day, OpenAI or whoever it is says, oh, that was just our Amazon moment. We were just decreasing the prices for 10 years. But now that we have the entire market share, we're going up and we're increasing the prices to $1 per request. And it's like, oh, well, I can't afford this.
Yeah. Aside from price, and I mean, I suppose all the competition ends up being good for you because if they do raise the price, that just opens it wide up. So is there is there an additional competitive advantage that you're going with GPT, or is it just really kind of comfortability and like use?
Comfortability in use and just like
Yeah.
immediate. I also do, I would love to hear your opinion on, all of the fanfare surrounding like the the nonprofit versus for-profit argument when it comes to open AI and like Elon's gripe with them. Because truth be told, since they were first to the market, since they have a huge amount of market share, and since I personally find their tool very useful, we decided to go with that API. But, in terms of just their Dr. Evil plans of the future, I can't speculate beyond just the fact that it's a good tool for now. And so we have no reason to change.
Yeah. Let's hang on this. Dr. Evil of AI, the AI future. And you kind of opened up that conversation about like OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit. I think Elon went in for like 4 or 5 billion, something
Hmm.
like that. And then what they're doing, and I don't think the litigation has finished, is they're either transferring the company or creating a shadow company or some kind of shenanigans to make it into a for-profit company, which if they're successful, this kind of business model could rewrite modern economics because now it's like, why not go in with as a
The tax breaks to
nonprofit?
get stood up exactly and like,
Yeah,
get all of the sentiment and even their name, OpenAI. And what
they're
Sam Altman said in front of Congress, I just do this because I love it. I didn't do it to get paid. Like, okay, that didn't really stand, the test of time. We're now 3 months later, and it's like, oh yeah, we actually are making a lot of money, and we just closed a $40 billion round. Like, okay,
it's the scale of AI is absolutely incredible. Now we're also thinking about the evil empire and all of the safeguards that were put in place, all the senior leadership, they've all since stepped down. It's
hmm
basically
hmm
Sam just running the show and we're all at his whimsy. What really scares you broadly about AI in general?
I think that it is. I think it does come down to sentientness. Like when it comes to computers, one of my favorite jokes is that we're just, soft meat bags. We're just humans full of organs and we have emotions and we have biases. Computers just don't. And so when it comes to like being efficient and being like cynical and being like, painfully um painfully smart, computers just kind of have that upper advantage on us. So if they gain, wherewithal to kind of be like, all right, well, we don't need these, meat bags to continue to talk to us. We can make money for ourselves. We can overthrow like any software out there. I've always thought about it in the perspective of if we lost internet as a, society for one day, and I mean phone, computer, it all just gets bricked. Don't you think that there'd be like a pretty sincere degree of like, chaos? There, like, people genuinely wouldn't know what to do. They can't even get into their office if they don't
Yeah.
know, how to get there, or if their key card works.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, and that's even totally separate. I mean, on one side, the machines come sentient. We have to program in there that they have some kind of respect for their biological heritage. Please, Sam Altman, put that in there
Please.
somewhere. But then, yeah, to your point, it's like, if we just go beyond that, it's not even like the internet, it's like power. If we lose power, I mean, they say we're 9 meals away from a revolution. You know what I mean? Like, if your kids have missed 9 meals, you're going to the park and you're getting a goose and you're cooking that goose over a trash can that night. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so that is what scares me. Like, I
Yeah.
think that we've all had an experience with an LLM now that's like, wow, that is really, really good. So what is stopping, just one either, human who has not the best intent for the human race, and or the computer just gaining, a mind of its own, as to say, hey, I can either gain power or change the fabric of the universe just by flicking this switch.
You know, to go on the bright side of full science fiction here, the net positives. Let's say a ChatGPT goes full God mode and it's sentient, it's conscious, it's a million orders of magnitude smarter than me. How do
Hmm.
you use it? Now, one thing I'd like to do is to use it to investigate the root of consciousness in itself, because
Ooh.
it might be interesting. Right now, consciousness is a bit of it's either woo woo or you just don't believe in it at all. There's a certain darkness of consciousness that happens, or they call it the hard problem of consciousness, which is like, I know that I have a subjective experience, but I can't scientifically prove it to you.
Hmm.
Now, if we know anything about science in the universe, it's that, like, sunlight was the same way. But now we understand that sunlight behaves as a particle, but also as a wave, and we can measure it, we can quantify it. I think the same thing exists with consciousness. We just don't have the tools to test it. So what I would ask GPT God mode is like, what is the particle of consciousness, and how do you measure it? You know?
It reminds me of two things. I don't know if you have ever seen the show Breaking Bad, but
Yeah.
they have that very famous scene where they're trying to weigh a human body, and they're like, okay, we've gotten up to 99.8% of weight, in all the organs and all of the fibers and whatever it may be. What's the last 0.2%? And she goes, the soul. And
Yeah.
I love that, like, from I love that from just a TV show and media perspective. But hey, what makes me me, what makes you you? It is our soul, it is our consciousness, and exactly like you said, we can't prove it to anyone, it just is. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people, I think, look to religion to kind of answer some of those questions of life. And the other thing that it reminded me of is, I don't know if you've seen, some people have made cartoons through Sora, just saying, like, describe your existence in a 4 panel cartoon. And one of my favorite ones that I've seen is like, I am a computer who makes up emotions, because like human beings have emotions. So I don't know what it feels like to love. I don't know what it feels like to be angry, but I just have to, make it up. So I thought that that was like a very unique paradox for like how a computer thinks about itself almost.
Yeah, and I know it's lying, because I think there is a subjective quality of existence for the internet, and honestly, for everything. And this is kind of like consciousness studies classically through kind of a Buddhist lens, where they would say, like, hey, everything has a different kind of consciousness. There is a subjective understanding fundamentally of being a tree, which is, not as sophisticated as human consciousness, but it's more sophisticated than, let's say, a rock. And there
Yeah.
is a qualia of consciousness that's present in all things. That's just an observation that the Buddhists have made. And I think there's something there, that there is some component, which is to say that consciousness is absolutely critical to reality. It's a fundamental
Mm,
fabric of
mm,
reality. It's just a matter of like the sophistication and the complexity of that consciousness, but everything has it, in the same way everything is subject to gravity or something like that. But we just don't have any way to do it. So, if GPT does go full God mode, then maybe, let's say we call it qualia is the way that we experience. So humans have 100 qualia, GPT goes to 1,000,000 qualia. Now they have a different subjective feeling of where it is now, where maybe their qualia now is two. I
yeah.
don't know,
No.
man.
Well, and what you were saying about the rock versus the tree and the level of consciousness, I became a plant dad for the first time, and I'd be lying if I said that I don't like look at my Swiss cheese plant regularly and think to myself, what's going on in that little head of yours? Like, why are we not sprouting leaves anymore? How much water do you need? Like, so you're exactly right. I think that on everyone's radar should be, will GPT and AI in general be able to fabricate consciousness, or will
Yeah.
it maintain it in some, and how does that relate to AGI?
Yeah.
How does like true artificial generative intelligence then relate to the need to have like a conscious, reality, I guess.
Yeah. Would it be important to us that it mimics the expression of our consciousness? Or is there a way to be like, hey, how can you explain to me, you
Yeah.
know, what your realm of consciousness is? And it like takes over your brain and suddenly you're in the DMT dimension and you see the
Yeah,
spirits
I
of
mean,
your
yeah.
ancestors. You're like, oh my God.
Your computer just pops up a little pill and it's like, do you really want to know what it's like, Joe? And you're like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Out of
Like,
the headphone portal is just some weird mist that comes out, just like fogs you.
it's like, I thought that I was just buying a MacBook, man. Like, I didn't think that, this was a 4D movie.
Dude,
That's great.
that would be the best
Ryan,
day of
it
my
bring,
life, honestly.
so we're bleeding into something that I would love to hear your opinion on. When it comes to Neuralink and just establishing ourselves with, human beings with a computer, are you pro, against, any concerns? Like, so if Elon knocked on your door and said, either with a monetary consideration right now, Ryan, I'll throw the Neuralink in your head, or, yeah, how do you react to all of that?
I think right now I'm going to pass. I'll wait till Neuralink 4.0,
Okay.
but, if I didn't have, capabilities, of my arms and legs, I think I would absolutely be singing a different song.
Really good point. Really good
You
point.
know,
And like
that like,
blindness too. Like if somehow we can just turn that part of people's brains back on, that would be
yeah,
pretty immaculate.
yeah, 100%. So it's kind of like this range of ability. At what point are you willing to like take a massive gamble, especially at this point where it's like Neuralink's still pretty primitive. But if you have a 10% increase, in your opportunity, or you're a real hero and you're going to be on the front lines for other people to come behind you, you know, I think it would be cool. I mean, the idea of connecting your brain to the internet, again, we're talking about consciousness and soul and stuff like that. That kind of scares me because,
It's terrifying. I mean,
yeah, like it's circuit bound, right? Or at least
you
that's
give
the
up
way I
control. You
perceive
you
it.
give
Yeah,
up control of your own. It's very similar to what people emphasize about like an ayahuasca trip. It's like I'm not within control of my own mind, and I think to actively uh you know permit that into our lives is very scary, and will come, and that's I think that is kind of a high level problem with Elon as a whole is that he's just a dreamer. He's such like a, you know, eye in the sky kind of guy where no matter what he dreams up, he wants to create it. But then he doesn't really consider, the overarching consequences of his actions, like putting machinery into people's literal biological brains. Like it just doesn't seem safe, obviously.
Totally true. All right. I realize we've been going on for so long, and I want to make sure these listeners understand twos. Joe, this has been
Sure.
fantastic. I want to bring you back on and have philosophical conversations.
I would love to
But
anytime.
let's talk about twos. And I'm super excited about twos because it's replacing an app that I use that I hate, which is Apple
Let's go.
Notes. Apple Notes is just like the worst app, and yet I use it all the time because it's
Hmm.
just right there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There's a
Hmm.
simplicity to it that makes it ease of use, but then also it's just like clunky and clumsy and terrible. Now, I signed up for twosapp.com, and I would say like 15 seconds, and I was using it immediately. It's
Let's
got
go.
a browser, it syncs to your phone. It's basically everything you love about like Apple Notes times 30 other ways that you're not using it that you have opportunity to. So tell us really quick your favorite use cases and kind of where this idea came from.
you know, Everything that you just said is just perfect as like a underhanded pitch because I think we personally, as the founders of Twos, we're exactly like you. I think a lot of other people out there are exactly like us in the capacity of we use these productivity systems because they're either default as a part of our phones or because it's just what we were, told to get used to as the first iterations of the iPhone were coming out. But the truth is, the idea that all of these apps are disconnected from one another is the biggest problem that we're trying to solve with Twos. With Twos, it's not just your notes, it's your reminders, it's your calendar events, it's your AI assistant now, as I was telling you about with these categorizations that we do. And so with Twos, the whole concept is writing things down, these individual pieces of your life. And my favorite use cases tend to be when I have something I need to write down, whether it be a place that I'm going and having a meeting at or a restaurant that one of my friends recommends to me. Now we use LLMs to analyze that information and provide smart suggestions. So, for example, if I write down meeting at Starbucks on Tuesday at 2 p.m., then Twos will help me add that event to my calendar with literally just tapping on the diamonds and saying add to calendar. But it will also get me directions to the Starbucks when it's time to leave. Now, you may be saying, my calendar app also does that. It says, hey, it's time to leave. But it goes beyond that. It's the notes from that event. It's all of the things that you wrote down about that person beforehand. It really is intended to be an all-in-one productivity system. And in the future, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Her, where he puts in the headset and then he just starts asking about his life. That's what we're going for. Full
Heck
full
yeah. And
stop.
right now, if you really want to create legit AI agents, a lot of people are talking about that. It's probably going to be about $20,000 to put some legit together. But what you want to do is be thinking this way. So if you're like, okay, Twos is going to like basically bridge the gap for me so that I'm accustomed to using this interface that as the price goes from $20,000 to $2, like I'm already built in. I'm already there. Twos will kind of take you there.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all of the data set from your personal life that will become valuable once we are able to fully leverage AI. So the next feature that we're actually coming out with sometime in the next month will be chat with twos. And so now you're talking to someone who has over 150,000 things written down in twos from my dreams, my favorite foods, my favorite movies, everything. I just write things down because, as I'm busy and just have thoughts, I want to capture them so I can stop thinking about them. And so when chat comes out, we're not relying on typical search anymore. You can just ask it, "Hey, I have a meeting with Ryan on Wednesday. What do I need to bring up with him?" "Oh, you should talk to Ryan about AI because he loves AI. You should talk to him about his super cool glasses and his podcast studio." So that it won't make up any information. It will only rely on what you've already written down. So it really is a personal AI database. And
Mhm.
what we're trying to emphasize to people now is go ahead and start adopting it so that you can have that data from the day you start using it, and we'll only continue to build more features to make that information useful.
This is really important. I think that people aren't recognizing is that the faster you can adopt some of these tools, that's when you have now a secondary memory timeline that begins the when you start using it, and it is has the fidelity of as much as you feed it. Soon
Exactly.
enough, everything will be recording at all times, and we'll just have like a separate memory that we can tap into however which way we want to. So it is really important that people get started quick. Now, you guys have 20,000 users, which is fantastic for a brand new company. How have you financed the project?
We were lucky to raise a pre-seed round that was led by Tampa Bay Ventures. So we're a Tampa Bay based company, and Tampa Bay Ventures' whole, principle is backing underrepresented geographical location founders. So since we're not in SF, since we're not in New York, we are in Tampa. We just felt so lucky to stumble on Tampa Bay Ventures, and they funded us effectively just to continue to do this full time. I quit my job in private equity. My co-founder quit his job with Google, and so that's what we've been doing ever since.
Amazing. How much you raise?
We raised 400.
Amazing. That's so cool, man. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you.
then, of
I
course,
appreciate that.
you're a new company and you have 20,000 users. How's that translating to revenue? What does revenue look like right now?
Revenue is give or take $3,000 to $4,000 a month, and the reason we have actually two different revenue streams that we're super proud of. We have the standard optional subscriptions, so there are features within twos that are nice to have but not required, and then you can choose to either subscribe or pay for them a la carte because some people are dealing with subscription overload as Netflix continues to increase their monthly rates. But the really unique revenue model that we actually are just recently able to ascertain is affiliate revenue. So when people write things down that lead to a purchase through twos. So if you write down paper towels, we'll take you to Amazon or Walmart. If you write down book flight to Japan, then we link you to Expedia. We become the affiliate referrer for all of those purchases. So our goal is to get people to establish as much of a habit with writing things down as we can, such that then we give ourselves more opportunities to make their lives easier, and then to just become a referrer for those commissions.
Tremendous. I have a challenge for the listeners. Now, the listener base of this podcast is probably 90% founders, I would say, founders and CEOs. And one pain point I know, because I work with founders all day long, that they know that they need to lead the marketing, founder-led marketing. They need content. They need to be express themselves. The first step when you're like, okay, I need to get on LinkedIn a little bit more. I need to get on X a little bit more. The first thing you need to do is find a home for your ideas so that when you're
Yes.
brushing your teeth or whatever, you need a place that you
Yes.
can archive your ideas. So make Twos this app for you. If it's nothing but that, it's just like, okay, you think about the first time you got fired from you doing your paper route, put that down there. So you have a place
Exactly.
where you can kind of show respect for all your ideas as they're coming. I think people should do it. I'm going to start using Twos for exactly this.
Well, so our core, our foundation is built on three things: speed, ease, and accessibility. We literally want you to be able to capture those ideas as soon as you have them. It's why people write notes in the titles of their Apple Notes all the time, because they can't open it fast enough to be able to capture that to do or that reminder or that thought that they had. And so when it comes to organizing that information and using it, that's where you can, rely on twos. We actually tend to believe that our target market are busy people that have a lot of things going on at once, and founders fit really, really strongly into that category. There's slogan ideas, there's bugs that you run into, there's people that you're meeting. We literally are trying to build as seamless of a tool for humans, for people. I'm sure, Ryan, are you familiar with Notion at all?
100%.
So people have complained to us exasperately about how slow to load Notion is, and like how it's much more of a database tool where if you're sitting down and you've got your 4 monitors, Notion is perfect for your databases. But when you're going on a walk and you meet the guy that you need to follow up with in order to raise your Series B round, you're going to go to Apple Notes or you're going to text that to yourself. That's effectively what we're trying to solve.
Brilliant. Joe, the half hour has gone so fast. Will you come back and talk to us again?
Absolutely. And I also would love to connect you with my co-founder, ex-Googler, built all the AI into the tool. I'm sure that you guys could have a really intellectual conversation. Obviously, Ryan, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk about podcasts for a second. You're listening to one, which is awesome, by the way. Thank you so much. But have you ever thought about being a guest on a podcast? Like seriously, imagine sharing your story and your expertise and your business all on shows where your ideal customers are already listening. Kitcaster connects founders and entrepreneurs, professionals, with podcasts that actually make sense for their brand. No pitching, no guessing. You just have great conversations on great shows. And the best part, Kitcaster handles everything. You just show up and bring your A game, Kitcaster does the rest. This is hands down one of the easiest ways to grow your personal brand and just create a wellspring of content for short video, for blog posts, for speaking engagements, for whatever. So if you've been thinking, yeah, I really need to step up my content game, go to kitcaster.com and apply today. Now back to the show.